Welcome to another Self-Reflection Sunday. My name is Coach Jono. We're up to episode 15, and today I will be talking about my dating experience over the past 2 years. Now, if you are joining me, please do make sure that you give me some love, give me some thumbs up, just to make sure that I know that you're enjoying what I'm putting out there. Now, I advertised that I was going to be doing this a couple of days ago, and I believe that everyone was excited and, was thinking that Coach Jono is going to be telling some juicy stories, but it won't be probably what you think it will be, but I took some notes, and I'll be sharing that about, why I think online dating. What is online dating and why it has become so popular. Hey Jason, thanks for joining me. And if you have someone that is doing online dating and you want them to see this, please share it with them. And if you do find this useful in general, please share it with someone that you think might enjoy it. Now, I'd just like to give you a bit of a background of sort of where my relationships have been, just so you can sort of have some context. So I've really only had 3 main relationships, and when I was 17, 18, and then 19, and then 19 went through to 26. I was in a relationship for 7 years. We decided to break up, and then that was September in 2016, and I waited a little bit and then started this online dating business. Now, I remember very clearly in 2012, 2013, when Tinder became a thing. I was in the army at the time, and some guys, I believe it was Plod, he had it, good old Rod, he had it, and he was talking about this Tinder business. Obviously, he was showing everyone, you swipe right, you swipe left, and you can chat to these chicks. And the whole idea seemed very novel, very exciting. Oh, wow, what's this? This is fantastic. You can just, match with these girls and, chat to them and maybe meet up, have a date, Oh, that's exciting times. And, fast forward quite a few years, and now, obviously, Tinder and all of that sort of stuff, Bumble, there's hundreds of these websites, sort of these apps. Oh, Ellen, thanks for joining me. Hope you're enjoying your latte. Now, there's a lot of these different websites and apps and all of this sort of stuff. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and they tried online dating back in the sort of RSVP days, and it was sort of seen as uncool or a bit almost taboo. And if you were doing online dating, there was obviously maybe something wrong with you. You couldn't get a real date, like a regular person. But now the tides have sort of shifted, and I believe it's more the opposite, where online dating is much more the thing. And I think I have a little bit of a theory about why that is the case, and I will share that a little bit later. But first, I wanted to go through and talk about a few different things and why I believe Tinder and all of that sort of stuff is the way it is. And I did some research this morning, and I've been doing some research over this because I came up with a theory about this, and it's to do with Pavlov's dog theory. I don't know if anyone has heard that, but that's when the dog would start to saliva would start coming out when it heard the bell, because there was this anticipation that it was going to be fed, because Pavlov actually trained the dog for that, because it was an untrained, unconditional response that he trained and made it. So it was also what they do, the classical conditioning that was later formed by John Watson. So he was sort of doing that before it was a thing, and then John did this thing. And so it was all about, experiences. So the dog knew, the dog figured out that when the bell rang, it was going to get food, because that's what Pavlov had done to it. He had conditioned it that way, because he would ring the bell, then he would feed it. And so then he would ring the bell and it would think it's going to be fed. So it would start to get saliva because it's like, it's food time. Anticipation. And then it was uncontrollable. The dog couldn't control the saliva because Pavlov had purposely done that. Now, I believe this is something that happens in online dating. You're swiping away left and right, and there's anticipation that you might match with someone, and that creates this dopamine release because we're like, oh, what if I match with this person? They're pretty attractive. They look like, I could maybe it'd be cool to go on a date with them, and so you swipe. Oh, I can match with them. Okay, next person. Wow, they're pretty cool. Swipe with them. And then when you do get that match, you're like, oh my God, I got a match with this person. And then you start to think about like, oh, what should I say? And then, what if they respond? And then, you think about what's going to happen next. So you get this dopamine release because maybe you've had a good experience with that. Maybe, you've gone on dates before and they've been, successful. So you're like, well, what if this happens again and I get with this new person? So that's what we call classical conditioning. And that was, again, formed by John Watson. So he actually did this test with Albert. It was pretty, it's pretty interesting test, probably a bit frowned upon these days, where he would condition someone. He actually conditioned little Albert, who was a baby, to actually have an irrational fear of certain things. Because what he would do is, the child was 9 months old. It didn't have any fear of any of the things that they were showing. They showed it a rat, a rabbit, and masks, some various masks. But then they figured out that, obviously, little Albert didn't like when Watson was hitting on a metal bar with a hammer, and he would actually cry because he didn't know what the hell it was, obviously. So what they would do is they gave Albert the rat, and then they would hit the thing, and they would hit the piece of steel, and so then he would start to cry. They did this repeatedly, 7 times over 7 weeks. So then he had an irrational fear of the rat. So anything would, if he saw a rat, he would start to cry. He then started to have a generalization, so things that looked like rats would be scared of. So he was actually scared of their dog. They said the beard of Father Christmas, he was scared of that because he thought it was a generalization that he looked like a rat. So that's sometimes what can happen. So some people obviously have good experiences. Oh, Tinder's great. I had this great date. Oh my God. And then you have bad experiences. So, there's, bad things that happen. So then you go, oh, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. All right. There's a comment from Ellen. So let me just read this. We used to do this with deaf and blind clients on the bus. Spray of eucalyptus when we arrived at the center so they knew it was time to get off. Oh, cool. Interesting. So yes, there's some Pavlov's dog and some classical conditioning. So yes, Alan, you are correct there. That is how it can be used. Obviously, that is a good example of how you'd use it. When I first read that, I thought it might be going a bad way, but that's good. And so, how does this relate to Coach Jono, and why am I actually talking about this? Because this actually has, a thing. So I mentioned bad dates. So you go on a bad date, so then you have a bad association with that thing. So you might be like, I went on a Tinder date and it was terrible. So I don't like Tinder because, there was an action. You went on Tinder, you swiped, you spoke to someone, you went on a date, it was bad. So then, you're like, oh, well, this is bad. And this happens in the fitness world very specifically. So we could go to the gym and we might fail at the gym. It might be really hard at the gym. We might have a bad experience with a trainer or another person at the gym. We might feel really embarrassed. So then we have a negative association with the gym. So then we get anxiety when we think about the gym. And, someone's like, oh, maybe you should join a gym. But you remember last time you went to the gym, it was terrible. Maybe you got injured, something along those lines. And so that's why it's very important to realize this and be like, well, was it that bad of an experience? Or, was it a bad experience and can I move forward from that? Because, you're going to go on a few bad dates. You're going to probably have a few interesting gym experiences, hopefully for the better, but they're not always going to be perfect. There's going to be something that you're not going to be able to do at the gym. So yes, so that's why I'm speaking about this, just so to make it relevant. So I'm not just telling you all my deepest, darkest secrets about my Tinder experiences. But then also, I wanted to talk about, I mentioned before, the dopamine release. Now, the reason I believe Tinder is so addictive is because of that dopamine release in anticipation. Not necessarily the actual dates themselves, but getting a match. Because you've swiped right on someone and then they swipe right back on you. That makes you feel good, so you get a dopamine release. The brain realizes that and then gives you a dopamine release in anticipation of that. So you're swiping and you go, oh, imagine if I match with this person. I said it before, imagine if I match with this person. Oh, wow. I'm getting excited. The brain starts releasing dopamines, the feel-good hormone. So you start to get dopamine releases. And then maybe you do get matched with them. And then you send them a message. And then, you're waiting for them to respond. So then you get more dopamine. And then, of course, if it works out successfully, that will create a condition. So you can see how this is sort of all intertwined. I think that's why this has become so popular these days, because they've gamified the dating experience through Tinder and those types of things with the swiping. Swipe right, swipe left, get a match, those types of things. And they actually did a study of this in Peak Emotions to Music. So they found that people were actually more excited about potentially hearing a song than actually hearing the song. And so again, they would get this dopamine release when they were going to hear some music. So of course they really liked the music and it made them feel a certain way. And then they were going to get a dopamine release thinking about listening about the music. So it wasn't actually the music themselves, it was that anticipation. So, yes. So I wanted to give you now a little bit of a background for myself. So, I don't know, maybe people don't know this, but I did actually apply for First Dates Australia in February 2017. And I had 3 interviews over the phone. It was a pretty interesting experience. But one of the things they asked me about was my worst dating experience. Like, what's the worst date you've ever been on? Now, I have never actually had what I would call a traditional bad date. I have been on dates where, we didn't sort of get along that well. We had different opinions and stuff like that. And, it wasn't like terrible. No one stormed off on me. I haven't stormed off on anyone else. I don't think there's ever been a time when either of us has been extremely late or whatever. But yeah, and I haven't been stood up, So, hey, Tom, thanks for joining me, mate. Tom, he had some interesting stories. I remember him telling me some stories about Tinder, but that's for him to tell, not me. Very funny. I do remember that, Tom. I remember that very well. Very funny. Very funny. You're lucky I wasn't your best man, because that was going to be what I was going to talk to you about at the speech. So, did well there. But so I haven't had any bad dates. But I do remember one time I got caught on Bumble while I was on another date. She saw my phone and she saw that I was on Bumble. That was pretty poor, Jono. Not good there. But one thing I have been told, and I guess this is not a bad date, but something always interesting. I've been told that I've been quite intense by multiple people on multiple dates. They're like, you're pretty intense. And for anyone that does know me personally, they probably realise that I am pretty intense. Hopefully that's a good thing. Obviously, I'm pretty passionate about sort of stuff. And then, they're always like, what do you do? Like fitness. And then they kind of realise that I'm really into this sort of stuff. And then that sort of, people find that weird. So, I don't know. And, yeah, I guess the only problem I ever have on dates is that they find out that I'm pretty far right leaning and that I'm pro-army. That always seems to... people always seem to get a little bit, I don't know, not confused, but just like a bit taken aback. And then always when I tell them I was in the army, I don't know, not everyone has had that experience with knowing someone in the army, so that's always like, ooh, tell me about the army. And, I'm pretty open about things. I think they get a bit shocked when I tell them certain stuff. But yeah, I wanted to go back to it now, and so that's my experience. I think it's been an interesting experience. I wouldn't say it's been super successful. I'm still single. I've met some great women there. I've had some really good times. Just nothing has eventuated. So it is what it is. But yeah. Okay, but so why is online dating so popular? I've already mentioned it before. It's about that dopamine release. But like I was saying at the start, 10 years ago, online dating wasn't that cool. Like, the RSVPs or the eHarmonies. You see the ads for them, and, you'd have to get a subscription and stuff like that. Now it's easy to access because it's all free. You get on Tinder, you get on Bumble or whatever those, and, JSwipe, that's the Jewish one. There's a Christian one, so you can do that. But, it used to be seen that you were undateable, 10 years ago if you're on one of these. But now, it's, like I said, it's sort of more the norm. And the reason is because it's controlled. So, party A and party B, they're both swiping away. They match because they say, that person looks attractive. I would like to match with them. I think they're good. Swipe right. The other person's like, they are also attractive. Swipe right. And then they match. So then it's controlled. And then they can choose whether they actually speak to that person or not. Oh, cool, we matched. Well, I'm going to say hello to Jono. Or Jono, hey, Jono had said hello to me. Where, the olden days, you say, oh, why don't you just go out and meet someone? Well, how do you know? You assume that on Tinder, Bumble, any of those sites, that those people are single. They're there for the same reason you are there, to meet people. So you go out to the club or a pub, like you look around, how do you know? Like you just approach someone, just say hello, but then what? Like they could be here with someone. How do you know? The online dating, they make it very simple. They're there. Hey, Toby, thanks for joining me, mate. They're there. They know that you're there. They're there. It's probably, hopefully there's nothing afoot there. And they can control it. So you can both a match. You can both go, okay, cool. I like you. And then you can have a conversation. You can break the ice. And then you can have some common ground. Oh, you like this? I like that too. Oh, wow. We have so much in common. And then you can, create that common ground. So then you can agree and like, hey, would love to grab a coffee with you, get to know you a little bit better. Let's go meet on Monday night at 5 o'clock after work and grab a coffee. Something like that. I don't know. Or maybe you want something a bit stronger. Hey, espresso martini sort of style. Because of that, there's a lot of reduction of rejection because it's not face to face. You go to a pub, a club, or anything like that. I've never been in this situation because I'm a bit shy like that. People that know me might find that a bit strange, but I find it very hard to just like approach random ladies and just be like, hey, what's up? Because there's that fear of rejection. Because, they could, who knows? Worse, they could throw a fucking drink on you, tell you to piss off or whatever. They can be really rude to you. They can embarrass you. So you just don't do it because you're scared of that, which is fair enough. But online, you're swiping away, you boom, boom, boom. You get a match, you hit them up, and then it just sort of doesn't go anywhere. You go like, well, fuck it, whatever. I don't even care. You'd invested very little time into that. Yeah, no big deal, Breno. But so you'd already invested. You hadn't invested. You maybe invested a day of sort of maybe back and forth, but there wasn't really that much time because you'd sort of just say, hey, how you going? The usual chit chat, and then you go down a certain path and whatever. But it doesn't go anywhere, and you're just like, well, fuck it, I don't care. There's, there is rejection, but very, very limited. Where in person, it's brutal. It's brutal. Someone just saying no to you, like, oh, in the heart, and because of that, it makes it much more appealing to go online and just swipe away because there's no anonymity. You can go on there, you can swipe away, you can chat to someone, and then there's no obligations. You're under no obligations to do it. And even though you're under no obligations when you're out, it's just that pressure of being, together, and it's sort of like you don't want to say like, hey, this is a shit day, I don't want to leave. Like I don't like you as a person. I'm going. That's a lot harder. So then you sort of, you're faking it. But where online, you can be as harsh as you want because there's no repercussions. It's sort of almost like commenting on a Facebook post, and there's no repercussions of doing that. You could say something really, really bad, but what's going to happen? Maybe that post gets banned or something like that. But so you can go on there and you can say they're single and they're most likely here for that reason. So you've got a pretty good chance. You're sort of hopefully shooting fish in a barrel, the sort of idea. Whereas you go out and you're like, it's crazy, and yeah. So that is what I think. That is what I think. This is from the last 2 years of being a user of online dating. I sort of came to the conclusion that that's the reason that it is addictive, and that's the reason why people do it. And I sort of go through bouts of being on it and enjoying it, and I get to meet cool people. But then other times I'm like, this is a waste of time because I get dicked around or whatever, or I speak to these women and then they don't respond, and it just gets frustrating, and it seems like a sort of endless sort of cycle where you match with them, and you got to think of an opener, and because women are 4 times more likely to match with a guy, because obviously there's the old joke of guys are always swiping right, just all right, all right, all right. I don't do that personally. I look at their profile. If they've got something, a bio, I will read it, and if it looks like I might enjoy their company, I'll swipe right. But supposedly a lot of guys don't do that because it's a numbers game for the guys, because guys know that there's less likely that they're going to get swiped, whereas in the opposite, from what I've been told, I don't actually know because I'm on one side, they're on the other, so they're swiping, they're probably going to get matched most of the time. But yes, so what I wanted to do to finish this off was give a few pro tips, a few mo tips, if you will, for all of you single guys and girls out there. And if you want to, up your Tinder game, biggest thing, include more than one photo. I only see it from my end, which is obviously a male looking at females. When there's only one photo, I'm swiping left. I'm swiping left, because how do I know if this is even them? And then generally there's more than one person in the photo. That's confusing. That's a left. Get out of here. No bio. That is frustrating. You are literally, they badmouth Tinder because they say, oh, you're only judging them on one thing. When you give them absolutely nothing in the form of anything about you, even some emojis, people, please, even some emojis, you're gonna show your type of personality with that, and people are gonna swipe left because they don't know you. What can I go off? The 4 photos you've got up, and generally it's them with a drink. I swipe left for people that I see with smokes in their mouths because I don't like smoking. And then all I see is they look like a partier because they've got 3 out of the 4 photos is them out, because generally that's when they're looking their best, which is fair enough. They want to take a nice photo, but generally they've got a drink in their hand. I'm not a big drinker, so it's like, well, they probably, are a borderline alcoholic. I don't want to match with them because they probably want to go out and get drunk, and I'm not all about that, hashtag fit life. So, make sure you have more than one photo. Make sure you have a bio, and then have lower expectations, I believe, all around. I think people have these expectations of online dating that it's going to be perfect, it's going to be smooth sailing, I'm going to match with this person, and then we're going to go on this amazing date, and then we're going to get married. Maybe, something along those lines. But they have high expectations. I've spoken about this which one was it? Episode 2 of Mindful Monday, expectations. Expectations are very important. I think that you should have little to no expectations for this, because I think if you build it up and you put this, online dating on a pedestal and saying how great it is because, old mate got married because he matched with a girl on Tinder, oh my God, imagine if that happens to me. You're setting yourself up for failure, because who's to say that's going to happen? It could happen, but it might not. You might go on a million really bad dates, and then you just be like, man, this sucks. Haven't found my dream person. I'm just so upset because of it. So that's something I want to. So more than one photo, have a bio, and have no expectations of it. If it happens, it happens. Like, so what? What if it doesn't happen? You're gonna go and cry and in your room and never come out and eat ice cream all day? That you can, but it's not a very productive way to live your life. So just have zero expectations of it. So that has been episode 15 of Self-Reflection Sunday, team. I hope that has given you some insight. I just wanted to share my views on online dating. Maybe a little bit different to what you thought was going to happen. Maybe you thought it was going to be some juicy stories. Gentleman never kisses and tells. That's what they say. So I haven't done that where I'm, telling stories. No naming of names. But yes, so hopefully this has been enjoyable. It was really enjoyable doing the research because I found it extremely interesting, looking up classical conditioning and stuff like that, and how behavior works. Hey Aaron, how you going? Thanks for joining me right at the end. Breno says he already knows the juicy stories. That's probably true because I told you, Breno. But I remember you got some juicy stories, and I could share them here. I remember, Breno. I remember you telling me those in the S7. I remember. So, or was it S6? It was S6. We were in S6. So, yes. But, yes. Hopefully this has been enjoyable. If you are watching it on replay, make sure you leave me a comment. I would like to know about your experiences. Have you had a good experience? Have you had a bad experience? Also, would you like to see Jono on Australian first dates? I know you would. I asked if I could wear the headband. They said no, so I don't know if I want to go on there. But again, Self-Reflection Sunday, episode 15. Thanks for joining me, team.